Hi, good morning. Jim Dandy O'Kelly here. I'm going to prove to you once and for all what a virus is and expose the polio and smallpox fraud. This is my first book that I published in 2010. I called it Frankenstein Science, the ultimate conspiracy accomplished, fake science they don't want you to know. And I put a quote by Herbert Shelton at the bottom, "Let us have the truth, though the heavens may fall." Now, this is a book I just recently had published by Amazon a couple of months ago, The Anti-Vaccinators Bible, A Conspiracy Exposed. The difference in this book is I brought out the truth about the polio scam. So I'm going to take you back to 1955, April the 12th, where Tommy Francis Jr., who oversaw the Salk vaccine field trial in 1954, told the media and the world that the vaccine was found 80 to 90% effective in preventing paralytic polio. Anxious parents were told today by Thomas Francis Jr. of the University of Michigan. That's what Francis told the media. But in his official report, he told a different story. In chapter 2, page 31, Francis wrote, "The purpose of the field trial was not to prove that the vaccine was effective, protective, but rather to measure the effect, if any, of an untried product." And in chapter 10, page 239, Francis says, "Obviously, it is difficult or impossible to say with certainty that a given illness, disease, disability, or death is or is not related to vaccination." Now, I've scanned in the pages from the field trial of 1955. And there's where it tells you the first about not being effective. And the next page tells you here where they don't know whether a vaccine causes disease, death, or disability. So let me kind of try to explain how they got away with this crap. They use logic. If A is followed by B, it doesn't mean that B was caused by A. So if A, vaccination, is followed by B, disease, disability, or death, it doesn't mean that B, disease, disability, or death, was caused by the vaccination. Let's flip that coin over. If A, vaccination, is followed by continued B, good health, why would anyone think with a thinking brain that B, continued good health, was caused by A, vaccination? Now, if disability or death happens after a vaccination, they say you can't prove it. And they're right, because there is no machine that you can hook up to the body and track the vaccine injected to its location and see the damage or death it has caused. None. Now, I put in here the players who did the experiments from 1893 all the way up. And I want to point out Martinez Bejernek, 1893, with the tobacco mosaic disease leaf, because some of the doctors have zeroed in on that lately, which I give the links so you can read their transcripts in their own words by Simon Flexner, Tommy Francis, Hilary Kaprowski, and a whole bunch more of them. And I got to go slow on this because my eyes are weak, and these printing is small. This is the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal, August the 16th, 1837. I'm going to tell you, they're talking about live virus. The most eligible mode, which has been suggested to me by my learned friend, is to transmit the matter alive, or in other words, by successive or continued vaccination in a ship's crew or a company's missionaries bound to that part of the world. That's your live virus for you, the pus of smallpox. This is another, I have a ton of these medical books. I bought them from a guy in Canada on eBay years ago. This is the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal, Tuesday, March 15th, 1860. I want you to see that. He says, inoculated 4 young kine with variola virus taken on November 19th from one of my own patients. Here is the actual transcript by Martinez-Bezirnek. I urge you, when you get my book, to read this whole script. I'm just going to read one small sentence. If these diseased parts are extracted, an infinite number of healthy plants may be inoculated and infected from this sap, from which we draw the conclusion that the contagium, although fluid, reproduces itself in the living plant. There you are. You got to read this whole thing. Simon Flexner carried Martinez-Bezirnek's experiment to a whole new level. He went from Bezirnek injecting sap, plant infection, to injecting human beings with dead people. Read just a section of this, but again, you get my book, you need to read the whole thing. In September of 1909, we secured the spinal cord from 2 cases of infantile paralysis in human beings. The lumbar cord was obtained in a sterile condition 26 hours after death and employed for inoculation of animals. That's your science. Here's a transcript by Tommy Rivers himself, Filterable Viruses, a critical review. This is where he miseducates the entire medical profession. We are here today for the purpose of taking thought concerning the knowledge of the so-called filterable viruses and the diseases caused by them. The agents concerned in these diseases or groups have been given a variety of names. Filterable viruses, invisible microbes, ultramicroscopic viruses, a few more. Then he says, but however, for practical purposes, then the term filterable viruses, mainly because of its wide uses, is as satisfactory as any name suggested. Filterable viruses were because they ran the poison through a filter. And then after everybody knew what it meant, they dropped the word filterable and just called them viruses. And here's a report from John Enders, our old friend that some of the people are just learning about. This was from 1954. Accordingly, the virus in the form of an infected suspension of mouse brains was used. Mouse brains was the virus poison. Here's a report from Hillary Kaprowski, who I actually had correspondence with his secretary years ago, and he eventually, under my questioning, sent me his official report. I'll just read what he said about the live virus. He was the first guy to feed a live virus to a human being. The first live virus was fed to a human on February 27, 1950, with aliquots of a suspension of cotton rat brain and spinal cord infected with the strain. Now, this next one is by Tommy Francis Jr. I'm going to make a point that most people don't know. Tommy Francis Jr. taught Jonas Salk how to make vaccines during World War II in 1942. Jonas Salk picked Tommy Francis Jr. to oversee his Salk vaccine field trial of 1954. They were buddies. They were part of the same conspiracy. I'm going to read this one thing by Thomas Francis Jr. The mechanism by which immune serum inhibits the disease-producing function of filterable viruses, remember Martinez-Bezirnek, has been subjected to repeated study by different workers and with different viruses. I'm telling you, there's so much conspiracy going on here for so long of a time, from the 1700s all the way through 1800s with smallpox and polio of the 1950s. And so many players. This is one complicated subject, I'm telling you. It took me years and years to acquire all these materials and try to put it together. And it sure in the hell isn't easy. Now I'm going to tell you the beginning of the polio lies of the 1950s. This is that book, Viral Infections of Man, edited by Thomas Rivers, one of the key players in the conspiracy. I'm just going to read a little bit about what he said here. He says, in 1898, the filterable virus era was vigorously initiated by the rediscovery that tobacco mosaic is caused by an agent capable of passing through earthenware filters, impervious to ordinary bacteria. Shortly following this, numerous etologic agents, including those of smallpox and vaccinia, were shown to pass such filters and to be so small that it was impossible to see them by any ordinary microscope. Again, he's talking about Martinez-Bejernik. You got to get this book and read this stuff yourself to know the truth. But now I'm going to tell you what a virus really is. This book here, Leicester, you never see that word, Sanitation Vaccination, done by Biggs, was written in 1912. I got about 20 books like this, but I'm just going to use the one and make the point of what a virus really is. They list several of them here, but I'm just going to read a couple of them. The Generian equine, that's horse virus, or repulsive matter excluding from the greasy heels of a consumptive horse. That was their virus. Swinepox virus, with which Jenner inoculated his eldest son. He didn't even use the smallpox virus, he used pig virus, pig infection. Horsepox, cowpox virus, or horse grease virus passed through the cow. Vaccination, of course, is vacca from the Latin and means cow. I'm going to give you this last one here. Pay attention to this one. Smallpox corpse virus obtained from smallpox victims after death. Do you understand now what a virus really is? I got a bunch of these books from the 1940s and 50s I bought also on eBay by the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, which became later on the March of Dimes. This one is 1942. This is how they promoted their cause of disease, cause of polio. The virus which causes infantile paralysis is a form of germ too small to be seen even under the most powerful microscope. And this one is the same thing, Dr. What Can I Do, National Foundation, 1949. They still haven't seen the virus under the electron microscope. The virus which causes infantile paralysis is a form of organism too small to be seen even under the most powerful microscope. It will pass through the filters fine enough to hold back all bacteria. Hence it has been frequently called an ultramicroscopic or filterable virus, which is filterable bullshit. Now, after I bought all these books, and I knew what the virus was, I knew what the con game was, I wanted to go back and find out what the media said about it in the 1950s. So I went on eBay and I bought tons of magazines, Life, Look, Saturday Evening Post, on articles of the media promoting the virus as a cause of polio. Here's a couple of them. I'm just going to read scripts from a couple of them. This is Saturday Evening Post, September 26, 1959. I'll just read one section of it. The proof is now overwhelming that viruses can cause all types of malignant tumors in these animals. Yeah, they're sticking this poison in animals and they're getting tumors on them, and they're trying to tell you it's natural. This book is Tracking the Killer. Life magazine, February 22nd, 1954. It shows a picture of Jonas Salk looking up at his virus material in a glass tube, and Dr. John Enders in there. Just going to read something here where we show this antibody and immunity and all this crap comes from. It was Robert Koch and Louis Pasteur who in the 1880s showed that infections are caused by bacteria. commonly known as germs, which are in perpetual assault on the body. You're being attacked every minute of the day by germs. And you notice they switch from virus to germs. Occasionally, under conditions which make the body susceptible, they cause active infection and the individual may sicken and die. But ordinarily he does not, because the invading germs and substances which they produce stimulate the body to manufacture the chemical entities called antibodies. And the antibodies are chemical made up BS. For each kind of germ, there's a corresponding antibody specifically designed to deal with it. In some cases, for the rest of the individual's life. A vaccine consists of germs, not viruses, but germs now. That's why people get so confused and think they're the same thing, which have been so weakened or killed that they can no longer cause damage, but which still can stimulate the body in pouring out antibodies. Vaccination has the same practical effect as a mild case of the disease. Now, what you got to understand here, all these newspaper people in the 1940s and 1950s, they didn't investigate anything. They didn't even question anything. They just took what these liars told them and reported it. No matter how stupid it sounded or how ignorant, they just went ahead and promoted it. And they reported on it. People in them days had no way of checking anything. There was no internet. There were no access to books. There was nothing there. So now let me conclude with this. There's another pandemic coming. They started it already with the measles crap. All these migrants walked over here from other countries and didn't have measles. And they were housed together for several months. They didn't have measles. Then they had one case. Where'd that case come from? They avoid that subject. They didn't even talk about it. They incrementally do this every week. They have another case, another week, another week. They slowly build you up on it. Now they got 70 cases in so many states. And before you know it, you're going to be in a pandemic and you're going to go through this crap again. So I'm telling you, those that are interested, get a copy of this book. Get it on Amazon. Type in my name, Amazon.com, or Jim O'Kelly's books, because this is the only book that can stop this vaccine insanity and save our children from suffering from autism and all these vaccine-associated diseases that they cause. And there's no doubt in your mind or mine that they don't cause these problems. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to wrap this up now. There's a million things on my mind. I can't think of them all. As you saw, the books I got and stuff like that. It's a ton of information. And it's been very difficult for me to put this stuff together. So anyway, have a great day and get my book and let's join this fight together.